The sun rises over Regent's Park in central London, casting golden light over manicured lawns, flowerbeds, and the serene lake at its centre. Families stroll along tree-lined paths, joggers weave past on morning runs, and tourists snap pictures in one of the city's most beloved green spaces. At first glance, nothing seems amiss. But beneath the park's beauty lies a chilling story, one that has baffled detectives, haunted residents, and captured the imagination of true crime enthusiasts for decades. It was on a brisk autumn morning in 1987 when the first report came in. A park visitor discovered a lone object partially hidden near the North Lake, a small, intricately carved box, covered in damp leaves. At first, it seemed like nothing more than discarded trash or a lost trinket. But the detective called in to examine it immediately recognized its strangeness. The box was locked, unmarked, and contained a folded note written in neat, almost ceremonial handwriting. Inside, cryptic phrases hinted at events unknown, a puzzle, a secret, or perhaps a warning. Over the following weeks, police discovered more items in different corners of the park, objects deliberately placed, seemingly with intent. A torn photograph pinned under a bench, a small key embedded in a tree trunk, and in one instance, an old journal filled with half-erased entries describing strange nocturnal activity in the park. Nothing was stolen. No violent acts had been recorded. Yet, the park had become a stage for an enigma that no one could explain. Detectives at Scotland Yard were puzzled. The items showed no signs of typical criminal activity. Fingerprints were minimal, and DNA evidence, though rudimentary at the time, yielded nothing conclusive. What was the motive? Who was placing these items, and why? And most hauntingly, what were they leading to? The trail, if it could be called that, ended abruptly with no suspect and no known witness. Over the years, theories emerged, each more speculative than the last. Some suggested a secret society used the park as a meeting ground. Others believed it was the work of a solitary individual with a complex psychological motive. Certain local historians tied the mystery to events dating back to the 1940s, hinting at wartime secrets buried in the park's history. Despite decades of investigation, the park seemed to withhold its truth, as though actively concealing the story from the world. By the early 2000s, media outlets began covering what had become known colloquially as the Regent's Park Enigma. Reports ranged from meticulous investigative articles to sensationalized claims, each adding new layers of intrigue. One prominent newspaper published photographs of the original box, journal entries, and notes, urging readers to come forward with any information. Despite this, no solid leads materialized. Locals began speaking of the park in hushed tones, claiming that at night, shadows moved oddly, and footsteps echoed where no one was visible. A breakthrough seemed impossible, yet interest in the case never waned. Private investigators attempted to reconstruct the sequence of events, analyzing placement of the objects, the cryptic writings, and the spacing between items. Their reports suggested a deliberate pattern, almost like a map, guiding observers to understand a hidden narrative. But decoding it proved impossible. Each new discovery seemed to deepen the mystery rather than clarify it. In recent years, as technology has advanced, renewed attempts to solve the enigma have emerged. Digital mapping, forensic analysis, and even AI algorithms have been applied to the case, scanning historical photographs, park layouts, and archival notes. Despite this modern scrutiny, the core mystery remains unresolved. Whoever orchestrated the events in Regent's Park decades ago remains unknown. The motivations, the meaning, the ultimate goal still a puzzle. Residents who frequent the park report feeling a strange tension in certain areas. Joggers near the North Lake describe sudden chills, as if unseen eyes are watching. Photographers snapping pictures report unexplained anomalies in their images, shadows that appear and disappear, or reflections that do not match the scene. While some dismiss these as coincidences, others are convinced that the park itself holds secrets that refuse to reveal themselves. As we revisit the story today, it becomes clear that the Regent's Park Enigma is more than a cold case. It is a study in human curiosity, psychology, and the nature of mystery itself. Every object left behind, every cryptic note, and every subtle placement speaks to an intelligence that sought to communicate without revealing itself. And for the public, it remains a tantalizing challenge to decipher the clues, to walk the paths of the park and imagine the story that unfolded in silence decades ago. What makes this case especially compelling is the lack of violence. Unlike typical crime stories that end in tragedy or arrest, this enigma is defined by absence of answers, absence of confrontation, absence of suspects. And yet, the tension it creates is palpable. The park, a place of leisure and beauty, transformed into a silent witness to a puzzle that has refused to be solved. As night falls over Regent's Park today, it is easy to imagine the same sequence of events unfolding. A figure moving silently through the pathways, carefully leaving items, notes, and symbols, all designed to intrigue, confuse, and challenge anyone who might stumble upon them. A game, a ritual, or an obsession. The truth remains hidden. In the next part, we will explore the patterns, potential suspects, and the historical context that might finally illuminate the purpose behind the Regent's Park enigma. Investigators, historians, and locals all weigh in, providing tantalizing hints and theories, some plausible, others bordering on the supernatural. For now, Regent's Park remains as it has for decades, a serene facade masking a mystery that continues to haunt the streets of London and the minds of those who dare to ask the questions. Regent's Park, one of London's most iconic green spaces, hides layers of secrets that stretch far beyond the picturesque lakes and manicured flowerbeds. In Part 1, we explored the discovery of cryptic objects, notes, and journals that first signaled the presence of what has come to be known as the Regent's Park enigma. Now, in Part 2, we delve deeper, analyzing patterns, investigating potential suspects, and examining the historical context that might hold the key to unraveling this enduring mystery. The first step for investigators was to map the locations of the discovered objects. Police records and archival photographs show a pattern. The items were rarely clustered in one area but instead placed along a specific route, almost like markers of a journey through the park. The North Lake and the surrounding wooded areas were frequent sites, as were less traveled pathways and hidden alcoves. Each placement seemed intentional, as if telling a story in silence. Detective Inspector Robert Hensley, who has studied the case extensively, notes that the spacing and positioning of the objects suggest ritualistic behavior or psychological symbolism. "We're not looking at random placements," he says. "Each item's position in relation to others is deliberate. The pattern may reflect an underlying narrative, a message that the perpetrator wanted to convey, but we are still piecing together what it could be." Among the discovered objects, some were particularly perplexing. A small brass key, intricately decorated, found wedged into a tree near a rarely used footpath. A journal with entries written in code, partially smudged by time and weather. A photograph, seemingly ordinary, but with faint markings that some experts believe were symbolic references. These artifacts hint at someone with patience, intelligence, and possibly an obsession with secrecy. Historical research added another layer to the investigation. During the 1940s, Regent's Park was reportedly used by military intelligence for training exercises and planning. Some historians speculate that remnants of these activities, or secret documents, may have inspired a contemporary individual to replicate patterns or leave cryptic messages. Could the enigma have roots in wartime secrets, or is it the work of a modern-day recluse fascinated with history and symbolism? The psychological profile of a potential suspect provides additional insights. Behavioral analysts suggest that the individual behind the enigma likely exhibits traits of meticulous planning, introversion, and an intense fixation on control and observation. The act of leaving objects and notes in public spaces indicates a desire for recognition without direct confrontation, a paradoxical need to communicate while remaining anonymous. Local residents have long shared accounts of unusual activity. Some recall seeing a figure moving through the park at odd hours, carrying objects, or stopping at seemingly random locations. Others claim to have witnessed fleeting glimpses of a person observing visitors, yet disappearing before being noticed. These anecdotal accounts, while unverified, paint a picture of someone highly deliberate, patient, and perhaps ritualistic in their actions. Scotland Yard has also considered the possibility of multiple individuals involved. The variety in handwriting, object types, and placement methods could indicate collaboration or a succession of people contributing to the enigma over time. This theory is supported by slight variations in the style of notes, differences in ink and paper, and the introduction of new symbols over decades. If true, the case becomes even more complex, a puzzle spanning years, with layers added by more than one hand. Some researchers have drawn comparisons to other unsolved puzzles and cryptic public displays, both in the UK and abroad. In these cases, individuals or small groups left symbolic messages, sometimes tied to personal philosophies, secret societies, or psychological experiments. While no direct connection to Regent's Park has been confirmed, the parallels suggest that human fascination with secrecy and cryptic communication is not new. One particularly chilling pattern involves the placement of objects relative to natural landmarks. Trees, benches, and statues were not selected randomly. Investigators noted that several items aligned with the park's pathways at specific angles, often pointing towards historical monuments or obscure park corners. The pattern suggests intentionality and knowledge of the park's geography, possibly indicating someone who frequented the area regularly and had a deep understanding of its layout. Interviews with historians and archivists reveal another curious detail. Some of the cryptic notes reference dates, events, or figures tied to London's past. For example, an entry in one journal hinted at the shadow beneath the bandstand, a location linked to a wartime anecdote involving secret meetings. Such references could either be clues meant to mislead or part of a coded narrative only the creator fully understands. Forensic reanalysis in the 2000s tried to extract more from physical evidence. Advanced handwriting analysis, chemical composition of inks, and subtle impressions on paper revealed nothing conclusive about the identity of the author. DNA testing of objects proved inconclusive, likely due to contamination over decades. These technical limitations only added to the mystique, reinforcing the park's reputation as a site of elusive secrets. Local urban legends further fuel public fascination. Stories circulate about unseen figures at dusk, whispers in empty pathways, and mysterious lights reflecting off the lake. While these tales cannot be verified, they maintain a sense of suspense and intrigue, keeping the Regent's Park enigma alive in popular imagination. Experts in criminal psychology emphasize that the enigma is as much about human perception as it is about physical evidence. The placement of objects, cryptic notes, and patterns are designed to provoke curiosity, anxiety, and engagement. The creator of the enigma seems to understand how humans think, react, and obsess over mysteries, a psychological chess game played across decades. In conclusion, Part 2 of our investigation highlights the complexity of the Regent's Park enigma. Patterns of placement suggest deliberate narrative or symbolic intent. Historical connections hint at influences from wartime London. Psychological profiling suggests a meticulous, patient, and possibly solitary individual. Potential multiple contributors add layers to the mystery. Public perception and urban legends amplify the enigma. As we move forward, Part 3 will explore modern investigative efforts, breakthroughs, and unresolved leads. We will examine whether contemporary technology, digital mapping, and renewed forensic methods can finally shed light on a mystery that has eluded London for decades. The Regent's Park enigma is far from solved, but every clue, pattern, and theory brings us closer to understanding the mind behind this chilling and fascinating puzzle. Regent's Park today appears tranquil, almost untouched by time. Families picnic on the lawns, joggers run along winding paths, and tourists admire the serene lakes and gardens. Yet, beneath this peaceful veneer lies a decades-old enigma that continues to captivate investigators, historians, and the public alike. The objects, cryptic notes, and mysterious placements from previous decades remain unsolved, and modern efforts to decode them have introduced both hope and further questions. In the 2010s, advances in forensic science and digital technology allowed Scotland Yard to revisit archival evidence with fresh eyes. Handwriting analysis became more precise with high-resolution imaging, while chemical composition studies of inks suggested some items were decades older than initially estimated, possibly linking them to earlier historical events. Digital mapping of object placements across the park revealed intriguing geometric patterns, lines, arcs, and clusters that seemed deliberate, as if the enigma's creator had plotted the park as a canvas. Detective Inspector Eleanor Chambers, leading the modern investigation team, explained. What we see now is that the Enigma wasn't random. The placements, the cryptic notes, even the choice of objects, reflect an extraordinary knowledge of both the park and human psychology. Whoever did this wanted attention, but not confrontation. They were communicating, testing, and perhaps observing reactions. The team also employed modern AI tools to detect hidden patterns. Machine learning algorithms scanned images of notes, photographs, and object locations, searching for consistencies in handwriting, symbols, and placement angles. While no definitive suspect emerged, the AI flagged correlations suggesting that a single individual, or at most a small group, had orchestrated the Enigma over decades. Patterns in spacing, timing, and object choice indicate planning and an almost obsessive consistency. Public participation became a significant component of the investigation. In 2018, a campaign encouraged visitors and local residents to report unusual sightings or provide historical anecdotes about the park. Several accounts were compelling: joggers recalling objects left in the same locations across years, photographers reporting unexplained shadows, and longtime residents remembering fleeting figures moving silently at night. While anecdotal, these observations corroborated some patterns identified by detectives. Historians continued exploring potential links to London's wartime activities. During the 1940s, Regent's Park reportedly hosted secret military operations, some involving coded communications and covert training exercises. Certain objects found in the park appeared to echo this era: small keys, coded notes, and symbols reminiscent of wartime cryptography. Could the Enigma be the work of someone inspired by history, or perhaps even a descendant of individuals familiar with these covert activities? Psychological profiling became a cornerstone of the investigation. Experts suggested that the Enigma's creator exhibits traits of high intelligence, patience, introversion, and a fascination with secrecy. The deliberate nature of the placements, the cryptic language, and the apparent intent to provoke curiosity without revealing identity point to a sophisticated mind. Behavioral analysts noted that the creator seems to anticipate human reactions, the mixture of intrigue, frustration, and obsession that follows discovery. A breakthrough moment occurred when a retired park gardener came forward. He recalled assisting a mysterious individual during the late 1980s, moving objects and maintaining a section of the park near the North Lake. His description was vague but detailed enough to provide new insights. The individual had precise routines, visited the park at odd hours, and maintained meticulous records of object placements. While he never identified the person, his testimony added depth to the timeline and suggested that the Enigma had been ongoing for longer than previously documented. Despite modern tools and public involvement, the core mystery remains unsolved. Some theorists speculate that the Enigma is deliberately unsolvable, an artful puzzle designed not to be completed, but to perpetuate fascination. Others propose that the creator may have passed away or abandoned the effort, leaving the park as a silent testament to an obsession now outlasting its architect. Media coverage continues to sustain public interest. Documentaries, podcasts, and online forums dissect every note, photograph, and placement. Amateur sleuths attempt to decode the messages using cryptographic methods, historical research, and digital modeling. Each new theory sparks discussion, debate, and sometimes controversy, but no definitive answer has yet emerged. Interestingly, the Enigma has had subtle cultural impacts. Writers, artists, and filmmakers reference Regent's Park as a source of intrigue, inspiration, and mystery. The story has entered urban folklore, a narrative of curiosity, secrecy, and the human fascination with puzzles that may never be solved. In many ways, the park itself has become a character in this ongoing story, quietly witnessing human attempts to uncover hidden truths. Today, visitors to Regent's Park often walk the same paths that saw mysterious figures decades ago. They pause at familiar benches, trace routes that align with past discoveries, and perhaps wonder about the intentions behind cryptic placements. Despite years of investigation, the Enigma remains alive in the imagination, a silent, unsolved narrative embedded in the heart of London. In conclusion, the Regent's Park Enigma continues to challenge the boundaries of investigation, psychology, and history. The interplay of deliberate patterns, cryptic communications, and historical echoes demonstrates an intelligence that thrives on secrecy and fascination. Modern forensic methods, digital mapping, and public engagement have provided insight, yet the ultimate truth, the identity and motives of the Enigma's creator, remains elusive. As we leave Regent's Park today, the mystery persists. Perhaps it is the unanswered questions, the meticulous planning, and the psychological depth that make this enigma enduring. For London, and for those drawn to puzzles of human behavior, the park remains a place where history, secrecy, and the unknown converge, an enigma that continues to intrigue and inspire. The story of Regent's Park teaches us not only about human curiosity and intelligence but also about patience, observation, and the profound impact of mystery on the human mind. The enigma, though unsolved, is a living testament to the power of secrecy, narrative, and the fascination with the unknown.